At dawn, a cold wind traced over the asphalt of the fairgrounds, stirring dust around a faded banner that read, "Welcome to the Great American Ranch and Trail Horse Sale." The morning light was thin and gold, catching on the metal railings and horse trailers lined up like armored beasts. A battered truck rolled past the main gate, its engine coughing like a smoker. The paint was peeling, one headlight dimmer than the other. It came to a shuddering stop on the far edge of the lot, where the shadows still clung to the gravel. Cole Mercer climbed out slowly, like someone not used to standing tall anymore. His boots hit the ground with a hollow thud. He was in his late 30s, though the gray in his stubble and the lines carved into his sunburned face made him look older. A denim jacket hung off his shoulders like it remembered better days. His jeans were stained from work, not style, and his hat had long lost its shape. He shoved his hands into his pockets and glanced around, taking in the clean-cut horsemen leading slick, shining animals past curious buyers and stern-eyed judges. He didn't belong here. He knew it, but he was here anyway. Behind the truck, the old two-horse trailer creaked as something inside shifted. Cole turned and unlatched the door. Inside stood Whiskey, a lean buckskin gelding with a war-weary posture. The horse's ears were pinned slightly back, not aggressive, just uncertain, as if he didn't trust the ground under his hooves or the man holding the lead rope. His coat was dull in places, thick with winter fur that hadn't shed evenly. One of his eyes was slightly clouded from an old injury, but it was sharp enough to assess the scene in front of him. Cole stepped back and watched as Whiskey took his first steps onto the gravel. He didn't rush him. "Easy now," he murmured, voice low, like he was speaking into a dream that might vanish if startled. Whiskey blinked once, then followed. Cole led him toward the back paddocks. He passed people who didn't look at him directly, too busy checking bloodlines, scanning papers, whispering about prices and prestige. A few glanced at Whiskey and looked away just as fast. There was nothing showy about the horse, nothing that glinted in the sunlight or carried a story worth repeating. Just scars, mud, and quiet steps. They reached a narrow stall tucked between two louder, brighter setups. Cole tied Whiskey loosely and let him rest. The gelding nosed the hay half-heartedly. Cole leaned against the metal gate and pulled a folded envelope from his jacket pocket. The rejection letter. The last one. They weren't just losing the ranch. They had lost it already. The bank gave him until the end of the month. After that, what was left of Ellie's land would belong to someone else. Ellie. He folded the paper back up without reading it and shoved it deep into his coat. She wouldn't have let things come to this. She would have found another way. She always had hope to spare. But hope, it turned out, was hard to carry alone. "Hey, mister," a voice chirped, cutting into his thoughts. "Is that your horse?" Cole turned to see a girl standing by the fence, maybe 13 or 14, with wild hair stuffed into a crooked baseball cap. She had a rope halter slung over one shoulder and dusty boots far too big for her feet. A filly danced behind her, tossing her head. The girl didn't even glance at the filly. She was staring at Whiskey. "He yours?" she asked again, stepping closer, eyes narrowing in curiosity. "Yeah," Cole said. "He is. He looks like he's seen some stuff." Cole half smiled. "He has." She paused. "Most horses don't come in looking like that. Most get cleaned up real nice first." "Well," he said, scratching the back of his neck, "we're not most." The girl reached a hand toward the fence. Whiskey didn't flinch. He took a step closer, nosed her fingers. "He's got soft eyes," she said quietly, "even with the one." Cole tilted his head. "You know horses?" "My dad trains them. Teaches kids to ride, too. I help." "What's your name?" "Josie." "Cole." She grinned. "Nice to meet you, Cole." He nodded and turned back toward the paddock. "You should enter him," she said suddenly. He looked back. "Enter him." "In the Trail Challenge Showcase. Tomorrow afternoon. It's not all show ponies and fancy footwork. It's about skill. Heart. Real work. You get judged on how the horse handles everyday stuff, logs, rope work, gaits, that kind of thing." Cole raised an eyebrow. "You think he'd pass?" Josie shrugged. "Doesn't matter what I think. Depends what's in him." Cole studied the gelding. who now stood watching the two of them like he understood every word. Once, Whiskey had been everything Ellie loved in a horse: stubborn, strong, loyal. But that was a long time ago. After she died, Cole couldn't even look at him. Couldn't ride. Couldn't talk. Just fed him in silence and left a past to rot in the barn. "He hasn't been ridden in a year," he muttered. Josie tilted her head. "Sometimes they remember faster than we do." She left with a wave, pulling her nervous filly along behind her. Cole stood there a long while before opening the trailer again. He pulled out the saddle, dusted it off, and set it on the rail. The worn leather creaked like old bones. He looked at Whiskey. "You feel like remembering?" The gelding didn't answer. Of course he didn't. But he didn't back away when Cole approached with the pad. It took 20 minutes to get him saddled. The girth needed adjusting twice. Whiskey tossed his head once when Cole reached for the bridle, but the old training still lingered somewhere beneath the hesitation. When Cole finally climbed into the saddle, it was like sitting on memory. The last time he'd ridden, Ellie had been laughing beside him. They were chasing cows across the far pasture, daring each other through the low creek bed. That creek had dried up now. So had the laughter. Whiskey shifted beneath him, but didn't bolt. Cole gathered the reins. "All right," he whispered. "Just a walk." They circled the pen once. Then again. The gelding's steps grew more confident. Cole loosened the reins, letting him find his rhythm. Around the third lap, Whiskey dipped his head and snorted, muscles loosening. Cole didn't smile, but something like it crossed his face. Then he saw him. Brock Talbot. A name Cole hadn't heard in years, but he recognized the man instantly. Same square jaw, same cocky stance, same cowboy hat that probably cost more than Cole's truck. Brock was standing by the main arena, watching a handless show off a tall, jet-black gelding. The horse moved like liquid steel. Expensive. Dangerous. Brock turned and saw Cole. A flicker of recognition. Then a smirk. "Didn't know they let ghost ranchers in," he called out. Cole said nothing. "Is that thing you're riding even alive? Looks like he's one sneeze away from the meat truck." Still, Cole didn't respond. Brock walked off, laughing. Cole dismounted slowly and walked Whiskey back to the paddock. He didn't tie him. Just stood there while the gelding drank from the bucket. Later that evening, the air cooled and the lights came on across the fairgrounds. Yellow bulbs and wire cages cast long shadows across the gravel. The smell of hay mixed with popcorn and cigarette smoke. The auctioneer's voice echoed faintly from the main tent. Cole stood alone at the edge of Whiskey's pen, watching him settle into the straw. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something softer than the letter this time. A photo. Ellie on Whiskey's back, both of them younger. She was smiling, wild-eyed, alive. "You'd have entered him, wouldn't you?" he asked the picture. "You'd have believed in him." The picture didn't answer, but it didn't need to. Cole folded it gently and tucked it into the saddlebag. He picked up the clipboard hanging near the registration booth and filled in Whiskey's name under the Trail Challenge list. Then he walked back to the pen, leaned on the fence, and watched the stars fight through the fairground lights. Somewhere nearby, Josie laughed, and a horse whinnied. For the first time in a year, Cole didn't feel like a ghost. He was going to ride tomorrow, and win or lose, he'd ride for her. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him, didn't notice the dark figure watching from across the lot, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But someone did see the name Whiskey appear on the list, and they weren't happy about it. By morning, the fairgrounds buzzed with motion. Sunlight spilled across the gravel like molten brass, catching on glinting buckles, polished hooves, and the fluttering number tags tied to saddles. Riders walked with quiet intensity, fine-tuning their cues, adjusting cinches, and going over patterns in their heads. The Trail Challenge Arena stood like a proving ground on the far end of the property, an open space fenced with rough wood, scattered with obstacles designed to mimic the wild. Water crossings, dragging logs, backing through L shapes, tight turns between cones, simulated gates. Cole stood just outside the entrance, Whiskey at his side. The gelding's ears flicked forward and back, tail swishing. He looked more awake today, muscles coiled beneath the faded saddle. Cole had spent the morning brushing him down until the old coat caught the light again. There were still scars, still the cloudy eye, But he stood taller somehow, less like a forgotten relic, more like a contender. Cole's hands were steady, but his throat was dry. He wasn't here to impress judges. He wasn't even here to win. He just needed to prove, maybe to himself more than anyone else, that something inside him hadn't died with Ellie. "Hey!" Josie appeared beside him like a firecracker, clutching a clipboard and a pencil. "You're number 23. They just called 17. You've got 5 or 6 before you're up." Nervous. He didn't answer right away. "Not for me." Josie looked at Whiskey and nodded. "He looks ready." Cole glanced at the arena. One rider was maneuvering through a bridge made of rough planks, the horse hesitant but willing. The crowd was quiet but alert, the kind of quiet that could turn loud real fast if a rider failed. "I saw Brock's name on the list," Josie said, her voice carefully neutral. "He's riding a stud from Montana. Won the regional championship last year." "Of course he is. You know him." "We grew up near each other," Cole said, watching the gelding in the arena stop short at a tarp-covered puddle. "Worked the same circuit for a while, until he went big. I stayed behind." Josie eyed him. "He said something about ghosts yesterday. You knew each other better than that, didn't you?" Cole gave a half-smile, sharp-edged. "He wanted Ellie. She chose me." "Ah." Cole tugged Whiskey's lead rope a little. He never forgave that. Rider 18 was finishing their pattern. Applause rose, scattered but polite. Josie squinted toward the scoreboard. "Scores are tight. Not a lot of perfect runs, but no disasters yet." "Good," Cole muttered. "Might leave room for us somewhere in the middle." Josie grinned. "Middle's where the surprises live." A loud whistle cut through the air. "Number 23. Cole Mercer to the gate." Cole gave Josie a nod and swung into the saddle. Whiskey didn't flinch. They moved toward the arena entrance together, and Cole didn't let himself look at the crowd, though he could feel their eyes. He focused instead on Whiskey's ears, on the reins in his hands, on the space between one breath and the next. Inside the arena, the world narrowed. The gate shut behind them with a soft clack. A judge with a clipboard gave a nod. "Whenever you're ready, number 23. Cole nudged Whiskey forward. The first task was the gate, a rope loop and a wooden post. Whiskey stepped up, hesitated a beat, then moved into the side pass. Cole reached out, unhooked the rope, held it taut as they pivoted, then rehooked it on the other side. Smooth. Functional. Second was the backing L, tight corners. Whiskey faltered slightly at the turn, brushing a cone with his tail, but recovered fast. The third obstacle was the bridge, weathered planks with uneven footing. Cole tightened his knees. Whiskey sniffed the first step, ears flicking. "Easy," Cole murmured. The gelding stepped on. Then another. They crossed without incident. A few people in the stands clapped softly. The tarp puddle loomed next. Blue and flapping, it mimicked a water crossing. Whiskey stopped short. The arena went quiet. Cole could feel eyes pinning him in place. He leaned down, voice low, just for the horse. "She'd cross it," he whispered. "You know she would." Whiskey flicked an ear toward him. "You carried her through rivers. This isn't a river." The gelding snorted. Then he stepped forward. One hoof hit the tarp. It crinkled. He didn't bolt. Another step. Then another. They crossed it. Applause this time. Real. Earned. Cole didn't smile, but he tipped his hat once, grateful. The final obstacle was the drag, a small log tethered to a rope. Cole dismounted, looped the rope around the saddle horn, remounted, and guided Whiskey through a slow circle. The log followed obediently. Clean. Practical. When they exited the arena, Cole let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Josie ran up to them, eyes wide. "You crushed that tarp," she said, grinning. "You got quiet applause on the bridge, but that puddle got people leaning forward." He remembered how. Cole said, patting Whiskey's neck. They waited by the fence as other riders took their turns. Cole watched Brock enter the ring, sitting tall on the black, gelding like a man born to win. The crowd murmured in appreciation. The horse moved like silk over the bridge, pivoted with precision, cleared every obstacle like a dance. But when they reached the tarp puddle, the gelding balked. Brock tried again. A hard cue. The horse reared slightly. The audience tensed. The judges watched stone-faced. It took Brock 3 attempts and a full reset before the gelding crossed, visibly agitated. When he exited, Cole didn't look at him. But Brock stopped near him anyway, hand still on the reins. "Not bad, Mercer," he said, tone flat. "Didn't expect that old nag to walk straight." Cole shrugged. "Sometimes the old ones surprise you." Brock's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Don't get comfortable. That wasn't a winning run. Didn't come to win. Then why show up?" Cole finally met his eyes. "To remind you she chose right." That wiped the smile clean off Brock's face. Josie choked a laugh behind her hand. Brock rode off, jaw tight. The scores were announced an hour later. Cole and Whiskey placed 5th. Not first. Not last. Right in the middle. But the announcer made a note of the tarp. The only horse today to cross it clean on the first try. Josie looked up at Cole. "That means something." "Yeah," he said. "It does." Later that evening, back at the paddock, Cole took off Whiskey's saddle and brushed him down with slow, grateful strokes. The gelding chewed hay and nudged his shoulder like an old friend might. "Good job today," Cole murmured. He heard footsteps and looked up to see a woman approaching. Late 50s, sharp eyes under a straw hat, clipboard in hand. "Cole, Mercer?" "That's me. I'm part of the organizing committee. I watched your run." He nodded cautiously. "Your horse, Whiskey, is it?" "He's not in the catalog." "No papers on file." "No," Cole said slowly. "He's not registered. He was Ellie's. Never put him in the system." She looked at him carefully. "There's a special division tomorrow. Not advertised. By invitation. For legacy riders, people who've ridden through something real. No papers. Just proof of heart. I think you and Whiskey belong there." Cole blinked. "Why us?" She gave a small smile. "Because today, out there, you weren't just riding a horse. You were riding memory. And you turned it into something solid." She handed him an envelope. "Show up tomorrow morning. Bright and early." As she walked away, Cole stared at the envelope. Inside was a simple card, embossed with a silver horseshoe. "Legacy ride, entry accepted." Beside him, Whiskey bumped his shoulder again, as if reminding him not to get sentimental. But it was too late for that. Cole folded the card and slipped it into his pocket. Tomorrow they'd ride again. And this time, it wouldn't just be about remembering Ellie. It would be about honoring her. By dawn, the fairgrounds were cloaked in mist. Faint golden rays pierced through the haze, spotlighting scattered figures, moving like ghosts among the barns and trailers. Cole stood alone beside Whiskey's paddock, brushing out the gelding's mane with slow, methodical strokes. The rhythm calmed him. It calmed Whiskey, too. The horse leaned into his touch, the old bond between them now humming with life again, no longer a shadow of the past, but something tangible, something earned all over. They'd slept little. Not from nerves, but from memory. Ellie's voice had lingered in his dreams, not as words, but as laughter. The way she used to call Whiskey's name, with that half-mocking, half-loving tone that only she could manage. He could almost hear her now, teasing him. "Don't screw it up, cowboy." He smiled at the thought. A rare thing. Today was the legacy ride. No ribbons. No cash. Just honor. Just the stories behind the horses and the people who refused to let go. Josie arrived before sunrise, coffee in one hand, clipboard in the other, face flushed from the cold. "You ready?" she asked, offering him the steaming cup. He took it. "We'll find out soon." Only 10 riders today. No judges, just watchers. The idea is to show what the horse means to you. You ride, you tell your story, and you let the crowd feel it. "That's all?" he asked, arching a brow. "That's everything," she said. The legacy arena wasn't grand like the main ring. It sat tucked near the hills, surrounded by a short fence and shaded by cottonwoods. A single microphone stood near the gate, and a small platform had been set up nearby for the riders to speak. Bleachers were already half full, filled with families, ranchers, old cowboys leaning on their canes, kids swinging their legs in anticipation. Cole didn't recognize most of them, but in the front row, Brock sat with arms crossed, boots planted, expression unreadable. Cole didn't care. Not today. The first few riders went, one by one. A woman who had rescued her mare from a flood. A man who had raised a half-blind Appaloosa since it was born. A teenage girl who couldn't speak from anxiety, but let her horse do all the talking with a flawless bareback run. Each story was met with respectful silence, followed by warm applause. There were tears. There were quiet smiles. When Cole's name was called, he swung into the saddle without hesitation. Whiskey stood calm beneath him, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment. They walked into the arena slow. No tricks. No urgency. Just presence. He dismounted near the microphone and took a moment before speaking. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. "This horse," he said, resting a hand on Whiskey's neck, "was supposed to be hers." He looked at the crowd, then back at the gelding. She named him Whiskey because he kicked like a mule and didn't trust anyone. Said he reminded her of me. There were chuckles. She trained him, not just with cues and reins, but with love, patience, laughter, the kind of things that break down the walls we build, the kind of things I didn't always know how to give. The crowd was still, listening. I left the rodeo circuit because I thought it cost me too much. But truth is, I left because I was afraid. Afraid of living without her. Afraid of riding a horse that knew her better than I ever did. For years, I left him out in pasture, thinking I was doing him a kindness. Turned out I was just hiding. He paused, but he never forgot her. Not once. And when I finally climbed back in the saddle, he didn't ask me why it took so long. He just carried me forward, like she would have wanted. Cole took a breath, then looked to the gatekeeper and nodded. He mounted again. Whiskey moved forward with a smooth, fluid walk. There was no pattern, no required route, just space. Cole guided him through wide loops, then tighter circles. He asked for a trot, and Whiskey obliged. Head level, steps sure, then a lope. It wasn't fast. It didn't need to be. Every movement was clean, honest. Cole dropped the reins, and Whiskey kept moving, steady as a heartbeat. Then he did something unexpected. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded bandana, Ellie's, soft and sun-faded. He held it in the air for a beat, then tied it to the saddle horn. As they circled back around the arena, it fluttered in the wind, dancing. The crowd stirred. They could feel it too. The presence of something greater than just a rider and a horse. When they stopped in the center, Cole slid off and stood beside Whiskey, hand on the gelding's cheek. "That's all," he said softly. But that wasn't all. As he led Whiskey toward the gate, the applause began. Not polite, not obligatory, real. People rose to their feet. Some wiped tears. Even Brock didn't move. He just sat there, hands on his knees, watching something he couldn't challenge or dismiss. Outside the arena, Josie met him with wide eyes. "That was," she shook her head. "I don't have a word for that." Cole didn't answer. He looked at Whiskey, who seemed unbothered by the attention, tail flicking, ears forward. Then from behind them came a voice, rough, familiar. She would have been proud. Cole turned to see Brock, hat in hand for once. His face was different now. Still hardened by years of pride, but something else had crept in. A crack in the armor. "Didn't think you'd ever ride again," Brock continued. "Not like that." "Didn't think I would either," Cole admitted. They stood in silence for a long moment. "I was wrong about you," Brock said finally. Cole nodded. "I was wrong about me too." The two men shared a look. Not quite friendship, not quite forgiveness, but something close enough to stand on. After the ride, a woman approached from the main committee, the same one from the day before. "There's a new event we're planning for next year," she said. "A traveling show. Legacy riders. Real stories. Real horses. No polish. No pretense. Just truth." Cole looked down at Whiskey. "And you want us? We'd be honored." He didn't answer right away. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of hay, dust, and something warm, something like closure. "Let me think on it." She smiled. "Take all the time you need." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned lavender, Cole led Whiskey out to the quiet pasture behind the fairgrounds. No crowds, no noise, just crickets, wind, and the occasional low nicker from nearby horses. He sat on the fence post and watched Whiskey graze. The bandana still hung from the saddle horn, faded colors catching the last light of day. He pulled a photo from his coat pocket. It was worn from years of folding. Ellie on Whiskey's back, laughing, hair wild in the wind, legs bare against the saddle. It had been taken the summer before the accident. He stared at it for a long time, then tucked it back into his coat. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we ride again." Whiskey lifted his head, as if he'd heard, as if he understood. And maybe he did. Maybe some bonds don't break. Maybe they just go quiet for a while, waiting for the right moment to rise again. As darkness fell, Cole stayed by the fence. No longer running. No longer lost. Just a man and his horse. And a story that wasn't finished yet.